Good morning, members of the MAG Intelligent Transportation Systems Committee. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name, making a comment, or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a request to speak card located at the counter where you enter the room and give it to MAG staff. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are also available on the counter. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please, it's folded here. I'll see staff for a ticket. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of members.
Susan Anderson, Arizona Department of Transportation.
Present.
Hugh Bialk, City of Goodyear.
Present.
Elisa Dahl, City of Chandler.
Here.
Albert Garcia, City of Surprise.
Present.
Frank Ganani, City of Buckeye.
Morning. Present.
Micah Henry, City of Mesa.
Here.
John Huang, City of Scottsdale. Kieran Jordan, Federal Highway Administration. Simon Ramos is proxy for Bruce Littleton, City of Phoenix.
Present.
Ruben Lopez, City of Glendale.
Good morning.
Good morning. David Lucas, Maricopa County Department of Transportation.
Here.
Craig Martin, Arizona Department of Public Safety. Steve McKenzie, City of Peoria. Here. Scott Nodes, City of Maricopa.
Present.
Marshall Regal, Town of Queen Creek. Raquel Schatz, City of Apache Junction.
Present.
Ward Stanford, City of Avondale.
Present.
Mike Sutton, Town of Gilbert.
Here.
Ellie Volleson, City of Tempe. Christopher Wanamaker, Pinal County. Tessa Wessel, City of El Mirage.
Here.
Dr. Shushang Zhu, Arizona State University. And Marty Zeke, Valley Metro.
Present.
And I see Kieran Jordan with FHWA and Ellie Volleson, City of Tempe, have recently joined us as well. We do have quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Our next item is a call to audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to audience agenda item unless an exception is approved. Have we received any speaker cards?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any requests to speak cards for the call to the audience.
Thank you. MAG also provides the opportunity of members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. On June 9th, 2023, changes were made to the process for accepting and sharing written comments from members of the public not attending in person. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with all committee members in advance of the meeting. for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. Staff, have you received any online written comments for the call to audience?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received 5 written comments for the call to the audience, which have been provided to the ITS committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal minutes of the meeting.
Thank you, Chris. We'll now proceed to item number 3. MAG Senior, did you have something? Oh, sorry. MAG Senior Transportation Project Manager Jeff Jenk and Transportation Safety and Operations Program Manager Margaret Herrera will review recent ITS activities and upcoming agenda items for other MAG committees and other related regional ITS matters.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and member of ITS committee. There are 3 items on my report today. The first one is the FHWA update. I would like to invite Mr. Kieran Jordan of the Arizona Division of the FHWA to provide the reports.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Next slide, please. Although I do not have new grant information to talk about today, I wanted to highlight some of the projects that were eligible for SMART grants in the previous years. USDOT's SMART grant program awards $100 million each year for fiscal years 2022 to 2026 to projects that use technology interventions to solve real-world challenges facing communities today. Stage 1 grants are those projects that require partnerships with public and private organizations to refine their concepts and report on results. At the end of Stage 1, awardees should have a fully realized implementation plan with performance metrics to support whether to proceed with the concept or not. Stage 2 grants are implementation projects that demonstrate the concept within the existing transportation system in a manner that can be replicated by others. 2 SMART grants were awarded in Arizona in fiscal year 2022, one for City of Phoenix and one for the Institute of Automated Mobility, or IAM, which we will discuss in the upcoming slides. Next slide, please. City of Phoenix SMART grant project focuses on implementing passive detection for cyclists and pedestrians at existing high-intensity activated crosswalk, or HAWK signals, as well as for vehicles all along Phoenix's Grand Canal. They were awarded approximately $1.9 million in funding as a Stage 1 grant. This project is being developed in partnership with MAG, U of A, Iteris, and No Traffic, and is split into 2 components. The first component focuses on passive detection of bikes and pedestrians at 10 different locations at Grand Canal in Central Phoenix. The existing HAWK signals will be upgraded to include passive detection, and once activated, will begin a yellow-red flashing red sequence to alert motorists that people are crossing. Upon successful implementation of the passive detection technology, the sensors will then be installed on the remaining 73 HAWK signals in Phoenix. The second intersections at Grand Canal. The second component includes passive detection for vehicles using connected vehicle technology at 20 intersections at Grand Canal. Advanced video detection cameras will be installed to extract traffic counts, and then No Traffic's cloud-based software will then optimize traffic signal operations and provide performance measures, including red light running events, speed data, and real-time alerts. Representatives from the City of Phoenix were invited to a SMART Grant Summit in fall of 2023, hosted by FHWA. There, the grant recipients had a chance to discuss their projects with other agencies and were able to have their questions answered by FHWA about technical issues and matters related to procurement. If you have any questions about SMART grants or need any assistance, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to assist you. Next slide, please. The Institute of Automated Mobility was awarded $1.7 million in SMART grant funding in 2022 that is being overseen by the Arizona Commerce Authority to demonstrate back-of-queue warning systems and work zone warnings. It is also focused on transit signal priority along Phoenix's I-17 and I-10 corridors. IAM is a public-private sector partnership to advance all aspects of automated vehicle safety, science, and policy. The project deployment area includes over 60 miles of freeway and arterial streets and will include at least 1,000 public fleet vehicles. The previous year's notice of funding for SMART grants opened up in winter of 2023, so I expect that the next round will open in winter of this year as well. So please be on the lookout for my update in the future. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kieran, and thanks to the local division of the FHWA who have helped the agency to capture these nationally significant projects. The next slide, please. I'd like to provide an update on the current projects. There are 2 remaining 2023 TISA projects. Both projects are in that very final stage of developing the already developed the draft technical memorandums. So we're really close to the end. The connected vehicle regional strategy study, we're making great progress, that we're at around 70% level. And today, later on this agenda, you're gonna hear an interim update of the study. Finally, I'm excited to report that we have issued a notice to proceed for all 10 2024 TISA projects. Again, these are short fuse projects. This year, we got 9 regular 4 retiming project, and then 1 just for the offset optimization. Next slide, please. Next, I would like to invite the Transportation Safety and Operation Program Manager, Margaret Herrera, to give an update on the program.
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee, I'll be very brief. We would like to establish a new ITS meeting schedule to go every other month. So that would be every odd month in the calendar year. We also want to provide any members the opportunity to give us any feedback or ask any questions regarding this. And we would ask that you do that offline. If you have any comments or want to ask any questions, if you could reach out to either Jeff or I by email or by phone by the end of this week. If we don't hear anything by the end of this week, we will move forward with planning May ITS meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. And as Margaret stated, if you guys have any questions for Margaret or Jeff on any of these items, just reach out to them after the meeting and I'm sure they'll take care of it. Item number 4 is the approval of minutes for the Intelligent Transportation Systems Committee meeting, which was held on December 6th of 2023. Does any member of the ITS committee have comments or revisions to the December 6th, 2023 meeting minutes? We'll give you guys a few minutes to look at that. Or a minute. All right, with no comments, have we received any request to speak cards for approval of the meeting minutes on the December 6th meeting?
Mr. Chair, I have received no request to speak cards for approval of minutes for the December 6th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 6th, 2023 ITS committee meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
All right, we've got Scott Nodes approving the minutes.
I'll second that, Mike.
Also Micah Henry. So we'll have those participating in the meeting online now take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone to participate in the voice vote. This is to speed up the voting process. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their cameras. Members, please leave your cameras on until after roll call vote so that staff can count the people's names whose cameras are not on. And with that, can I have a vote on those in the room and those online? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. MAG staff or Chris, can you take roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Susan Anderson, Arizona Department of Transportation.
Aye.
Ward Stanford, City of Avondale.
Aye.
Frank Ganani, City of Buckeye.
Aye.
Marshall Regal, Town of Queen Creek. Marshall Regal, Town of Queen Creek. Ruben Lopez, City of Glendale.
Aye.
Have I missed anyone online?
I just want to make sure you did hear Marshall did reply. He did.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. That concludes the voting for this item.
All righty. With that, we'll move on to item number 5. Item number 5 will be presented by MAG Transportation Improvement Funding Program Manager Patrick Stone. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion. With that, we'll turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee. A pleasure to be here to present this item. Apologize in advance. There are a significant number of slides, but I think it'll be very interesting for the committee. And also, just because of the volume of slides, I will pause a couple of times to allow committee members to ask questions. But also, if you see a particular slide and you have a question on that slide, certainly don't hesitate to interrupt me and let me know that you have a question. So before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, just kind of set some context of the Regional Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Investment Plan, or RSTIP, as it's known. This is the funding plan associated with the extension of Prop 400, unanimously approved by MAG Regional Council back in June of 2021. And then as a result of Senate Bill 1102, which was passed last summer, signed into law by Governor Hobbs, we took through some codifying changes to update the RSTIP to be in alignment with 1102. That was done in September last year. And just the critical piece on the bottom of the slide is to note that this is the template that serves as the template to serve for Prop 479, the extension of Prop 400. I really do enjoy this map. I think this does a good job of showing the investments within the region associated with Prop 479. As you can see, it covers the entire region across all modal categories, significant investments in both freeway, arterial, and transit. One thing to note specific to this committee, it only shows those line itemed projects included in the investment plan, so it doesn't show any of the funding associated with any of the programmatic sources. So kind of the plan by the numbers, starting with the lower right-hand corner, we often hear discussion about Prop 400 and now Prop 479 about the half-cent sales tax, a critical component of funding within the region, over half of the funding, but not the only source of funding that the region uses. And for this committee's clarification, if we look in the bottom left, these are the new programmatic investments, specifically calling out ITS at $600 million over the 20-year life cycle of the plan. This was really a response to an uncertain future, if you will. Lessons learned from Prop 400. We've set aside a significant amount of funding to adapt to changing conditions. So this allows the region to be very responsive to member agency needs. Timeline. I hope this slide looks right, but it may not, but we'll start. So when I built this slide deck, we were here in February. We are now here in March, but so we sit here in March of 2024. This November, voters in Maricopa County will have the consideration of Proposition 4979 on the ballot. We jump ahead a year from that, and December 31st of 2025 is the end of Proposition 400, both the programs and policies associated with it, and the half-cent sales tax. Assuming a successful ballot initiative this November, we jump ahead one day to January 1st of 2026, and that begins the start of Proposition 400 for those programs and policies. As you see, we're sitting essentially 2 years out from the beginning of 479, and the question then becomes, why are we talking about it today? So there's really two factors to consider in implementing the plan, why we're looking at both ahead of this November, and also January of 2026. And it's really two facets. One is on the capital side, and we'll focus extensively for this group with the capital project investments. And then also as well, there are significant transit service considerations associated with the plan. So capital projects. I think this will somewhat be familiar to most everyone in this room, but what is the project development process that we're really thinking about? Starting at that high level with the scoping and any federally required environmental process. Then that gives way into developing your final design along with dealing with any utility relocations or necessary right-of-way acquisitions. And all of this has to occur before you can even think about physical construction and turning a piece of dirt. So actually, let me go back. So we know this process takes a significant amount of time, and the next few slides I'm going to kind of highlight that, but I want you to also think about the concept of the timeline and that we're currently 2 years out from the start of Prop 479. So what we've done, and you'll see it over the next 3 slides, is shown a selection of projects by modal category. This first one deals with those freeway investments we have within the current Prop 400. This slide, the 2 colors actually focus. One, the blue is on the scoping environmental, that kind of high level phase, and then both the kind of gray hatched mark is the design and right-of-way phase. Looking at a 2-year window to the start of 479, we have 1 project out of these 5 that would have actually made that deadline. That was the bridge replacement associated with I-17 at Central Avenue. Excuse me. As you can see, all of these other investments take significant amount of time just in the development phase. This just gets you to actually the start of actual physical construction. So something to be cognizant of how much time we need to get these investments delivered. Moving forward into the arterial space. So this is associated with the arterial life cycle program, a little better. A lot more of the projects are closer to that 2-year window. Again, quite a few don't make that target. And I think this slide is very interesting. If you go from top to bottom, those first couple of projects were fully funded with the half-cent sales tax. They were regionally funded only. As you move further down, you see a blending of both federal formula funds and the half-cent sales tax, and then moving into exclusively federally funded projects. As we've always said, it does take longer to deliver federal projects. And then finally, and I think this is kind of a good one for the committee as well, similarly, these are the competitively funded projects as part of the regional call for projects. We've done some SM&O calls for projects over the last few years. You see a couple of those actually highlighted here, top one being Yuma Road and Broadway. And again, it does take time to develop these projects and deliver these projects much better to that 2-year window, but still, we're already working from behind as we think about this process. So quickly talk a little bit about transit. This is the transit service map within the valley. One thing we like to do, and this is probably similar to what you would experience on the non-transit side, you just can't flip the switch when it comes to transit investments. Just like any sort of roadway or arterial or technology investment, it takes time to get these things developed and delivered. So specifically with transit, when we identify service needs and service changes that have to be or want to be included, it takes time to get them into the short range transit program, which is managed by Valley Metro. And I think this kind of makes sense. If you think of transit does not normally exist just solely within one community. So there's always impacts to neighboring jurisdictions when you are talking about any sorts of changes to transit service. Along with that, you actually have to have a fleet. If you want to expand or increase service, you have to have those transit vehicles, and then you have to have people to drive them. So those are significant considerations when starting to thinking about, hey, if we want to do new transit service starting in 26, what's it going to take to get there? And then there's also the federally required ADA component of our transit program. So kind of a few key talking points about, reiterating why we're talking about implementation before November. One, as always, we want to ensure funding is used as efficiently as possible in the region. You'll see in subsequent slides, I think there's been a thoughtful consideration of how transportation is funded in the region now, much more flexible, much more friendly, if you will. And another thing, specifically thinking about the projects identified within the investment plan, they're in there for a reason. Member agencies said these are critical to our community, they're critical to our residents. So the quicker we get started, the quicker we get these projects going, the quicker we maximize the benefit of those projects. In the transit space, again, talking about the time it takes to develop service expansion and improvements, it takes time. So it's allowing Valley Metro and member agencies time to get those changes identified and implemented. And then finally, and this will have even more of a bearing in subsequent slides, but we want to ensure no federal funding is lost from the region. Federal funding allocated to the region is use or lose. If we don't program it in the year it's made available, it would be lost. A good question to come up in a previous conversation: have we ever lost federal funding in the region? And to my knowledge, we have not, but I don't want to be the person who that happens to. So that's a critical component. So I'm going to pause here real quick. Any questions so far from the folks in the room or people online? All right, excellent. So looking ahead, how are we going to develop this? How are we going to get from today to tomorrow? So as I kind of talked earlier, regional funding isn't just the half-cent sales tax. It's inclusive of all funding sources available to the region, including those formula funds provided by our federal partners, both through FHWA and FTA, as well as a portion of the Highway User Revenue Fund, or HURF, that is provided to the region. You take all of these together, you combine them, and you get the RSTIP. And so the RSTIP really is inclusive of all the funds available to the region, but you have to have a way to translate the RSTIP into action. And we do that through the use of management tools. And there's 4 key components to this. The first is the Freeway Lifecycle Program implemented by our partners at ADOT. This delivers those freeway improvements. We have the Transit Lifecycle Program implemented by both Valley Metro and our member agencies. We have an Arterial Lifecycle Program, again, implemented by member agencies. And then finally, and more of a cognizance to this committee, we have competitive programs, again, also implemented by member agencies. So my first focus is really going to actually be on the 3 lifecycle programs. We'll go through those and then pick up the competitive programs at the end. So a hallmark of the lifecycle programs associated with Prop 479 and the investment plan, they stay the same. So we have the 3 lifecycle programs we currently have today, the freeway, arterial, and transit programs. So at least that does help. There isn't anything new as far as where we are investing our funds. Starting with the freeway side, and you're going to hear a lot of the same narrative because a lot of this applies to all 3 programs. Where we sit today, Prop 400. So we know the projects and we know the phasing of those investments remaining in Prop 400. We have a game plan to get us to the end of Prop 400. Includes all funding sources available to the region, as you saw in the previous slide, the half-cent sales tax. We also have formula funding from FHWA and our share of the Highway User Revenue Fund. And we believe this will be the easiest program to transition of the 3 lifecycle programs. Twofold. First of all, we have a 40-year history in this program of working with ADOT and delivering these investments. And we have the precedence of, this was a program that actually transitioned from Prop 300 to Prop 400. So if anyone who remembers back in the day, in the early 2000s, this program existed in Prop 300 and it did exist in Prop 400. So there's knowledge of how to transition between 2 funding investments. And then the other thing we're really looking at is, boy, that's right in the middle of my slide, but that's okay. But well, just how it's kind of like, we're really trying to start and do the effort to associated with phase 1. And you'll kind of hear this, it comes up a couple of times, but really we're doing a lot of that planning and preparing, looking at phase 1. So and what we've done, 2 specific examples at the end of last calendar year, we took requests for final design on both State Route 30 and State Route 24 through the committee process. Those were approved. It allows us to get those final design efforts underway now, such that if we move into phase 1 of the investment plan, we can hit the ground running with those projects. So looking ahead, again, you're going to kind of hear the same message a few different times. 2 critical components. This plan was developed a couple of years ago, so things have changed. And I think your agencies are all aware of this, but we need to go back and look at revenue estimates, updating estimates for both the half-cent sales tax, as well as formula funding and HURF, so that we have an understanding of those revenues available to the program. And then really, I think can't emphasize enough the second box here is updating the project costs. Again, those were done a few years ago. Given the volume of projects, there are 90 projects, it takes time to account for any unit costs, inflation changes. So this will be quite a big effort, ultimately leading to an implementation schedule for near-term projects. If you look at the investment plan, they are in phases. You see on the screen, phase 1, phase 2. Those are 5-year blocks of time. So what we look to be doing is start actually sequencing by year those projects and not just saying they are phase 1. The intent is to begin this effort later this spring after we develop and have the fiscal year 2025 Freeway Lifecycle Program completed, hopefully after May. Moving on to the arterial program, where we sit with Prop 400 arterial program, very similar to the Freeway Lifecycle Program. Again, we know what projects are in there, so we know what investments are left to be delivered. We have a plan to deliver those investments. We feel fairly confident with that. Similar to the freeway side, both the half-cent sales tax and federal formula funding are made available to the Lifecycle Program. I think this is interesting. The concept of the arterial lifecycle program is that it's a reimbursement program. Our agencies construct those improvements and then seek reimbursement in the subsequent year. Development has caught up to this. So we are now in kind of a stasis, if you will, with this program. I do like this slide. I think it helps kind of visualize 400 to 479. The current ALCP is funded both with the half-cent sales tax and federal formula funds, as noted. That adds a level of complexity. However, transitioning into 479, the arterial lifecycle program is 100% half-cent sales tax funded. Great opportunities there. Does actually present some additional challenges as we deliver that investment. So thinking about Prop 400 a little further, some items still left to do with Prop 400. Big one is to address the end of the Prop 400 ALCP. We are going to land this plane and we need to think about a couple of different items, those being how long after the end of Prop 400 should funding be available? We have projects programmed to go to construction in fiscal year 2026. They will not be completed by the end of 2026 in the Prop 400 ALCP. How long do we need to make those funds available to member agencies? And then I think this is probably going to be the larger conversation throughout this year. How to treat the two life cycle programs. We have Prop 400 ALCP, we have Prop 479 ALCP. Merge them, keep them separate. This is going to be a large discussion. Very exciting. So looking ahead, some of this will look familiar to the freeway one. We do have to develop those 479 policies as noted on the prior slide. Again, updating revenue forecasts. We need to know what funding is available for 479. Think about how much regional funding is made available to these projects, especially considering inflation. That's top of mind to all agencies, I think, at this point. And again, similar to the Freeway Lifecycle Program, it's really developing that specific sequencing of those projects, especially in phase 1. How do we do it? Well, we have 4 bullet points. Essentially, and this comes a couple times, we will get a work group of member agencies convened to tackle 2 issues. The first being the end of the Prop 400 ALCP and also the development of Prop 479 ALCP. Ultimately, these policy conversations will be brought through the MAG committee process for consideration and eventual approval. Any questions on the freeway and arterial real quick? Good. All right. Next. Transit. So the transit lifecycle program, there's an existing Prop 400 TLCP. Again, we know the service and capital investments for Prop 400. So we have a very defined space again. That being said, this one is going to be the largest policy shift of the 3 life cycle programs. The arterial program, we have an existing arterial, we know what it is. Freeway, we have those years of investments. This one's going to be a shift, and it's because of this last bullet point. Currently, Valley Metro is responsible for the management of the TLCP. They have that responsibility through the end of Prop 400. Starting with Prop 479, that transitions to MAG's roles and responsibilities. That will be a shift to develop those policies. So I'm going to quickly go through the transit. As you can see, there are a lot of categories where transit is existing in 479. Starting with operating assistance, this is actually going to be a bit of a change, moving to a performance-based plan. While we do have some baseline allocations, there will be work being developed with MAG and Valley Metro to identify how we transition to a performance-based funding model. Express Bus, regional transit facilities, these are carryovers from the existing Prop 400 transit lifecycle program. Again, though, there's work to be done between MAG and Valley Metro to look at especially the commuter bus study and do an update to see what steps need to be taken and what considerations need to be taken as far as dealing with express and commuter buses. Also looking at park and ride lots. ADA, the region has a federal requirement to provide ADA service within a fixed distance of fixed route service. Also, one of those areas we will be looking at with Valley Metro to develop policies regarding ADA funding, that which is federally required. And the really reason being is this can be one of those areas where cost containment becomes a critical component. Regional services, kind of a continuation from Prop 400, items like fare box systems, operations and maintenance facilities, those will continue to be funded in the Prop 479. Bus purchases, the region funds all bus purchases in the region, will continue to fund all of that. Work to be done to identify how do we prioritize and identify those needs. Transit asset management, again, MAG working with the Valley Metro and City of Phoenix will be looking into that space. Preventive maintenance, this is an interesting one. This conversation came up at Transit Committee this week, so I thought that was a very good discussion. The RSTIP does continue the Prop 400 era policy, which is we take 25% of our, it's called 5307 funding, but 25% of that is allocated towards preventative maintenance, which helps offset transit costs for member agencies. And then finally, kind of a big category, take it all at once, but high capacity transit, a lot of work to be done in the high capacity space, specifically developing those policies. And as you've heard before, updating forecasts and regional funding. Oops, my apologies. And then kind of developing again an implementation schedule of those investments or those projects identified in the plan. Similar to some others, this will involve convening a work group along with Valley Metro to talk about how we get this accomplished. All right, moving on to competitive programs. This is the exciting one. So as noted before, these are the ones that are implemented by member agencies. This is where we have those discrete programmatic investments identified in the RSTIP. A really good slide here. So Prop 400, the competitive programs were exclusively federally funded. But due to a demand for increased kinds of programs, funding associated with those programs, recognizing that federally funding a program or project has costs associated with it, has time associated with it, and kind of having our eye on the theory of faster project delivery, as I mentioned before, getting those investments out to our member agencies and the public quicker. You'll see in Prop 479, it shifts to a federally funded and sales tax funded. So it's a blended funding. We do have some specific programs that are 100% sales tax funded, some that are primarily sales tax funded with some federal, and then we do have a couple that are exclusively federally funded. On the left, Prop 400 era programs, Bike and Ped, Air Quality, and top of mind to this committee, ITS. As you see, though, we now move into 479, quite a diverse set of investments. We move into a non-motorized infrastructure space, again, continuing on with air quality. 2 new arterial programs, one for arterial rehabilitation and one for arterial widening, which also would include no roadways. Investments in emerging tech, the continuation of funding in our ITS space, a new arterial intersection improvement, and I think really, and you'll see this come up, but increased emphasis in safety. So looking ahead. So the priority is actually going to be given to these 2 arterial programs, the arterial rehab and the arterial widen, reason being these are 100% federally funded. So these were the 2 exclusively federally funded competitive programs in the investment plan. So to get those going, we're going to start a lot quicker than some of the others, but getting together member agencies, this will be, we are going to reach out to every agency. The intent is, we want every member agency to have a seat at that table, to have conversations about developing these policies that will ultimately go through TPC for consideration. And unfortunately can't kind of see, but the reason why we're hustling on this is we want to get this first call for projects out in this calendar year, hopefully in the fall, because we're looking to start programming funding in fiscal year 26, 27, and 28. And as we talked about on those slides previously, given the amount of time it takes to develop these projects, we need to get started quickly. Some additional work that needs to be done to deliver these competitive programs, two really critical components. One is updating the active transportation plan. And as this committee is well aware, updating the SM&O plan. So that will be a big lift and something coming up. And another one, and this has come up, and our executive director, Ed Zerker, has mentioned this a couple times. Really, you're going to start to see an emphasis on safety throughout the region, throughout the committees, I think throughout the process. So it's just going to become a critical component, not that it hasn't always been, but the region, unfortunately, is not doing as well as safety as they would like. It's just a given. So to summarize, where we're at, where we're going to start efforts soon. The near-term lift is really going to be on the kind of technical work, policy work, framework discussions. This spring, we have two big items that are on my plate, which is developing the end of Prop 400 ALCP and the two new arterial programs. This fall is going to be the Prop 479 ALCP and the Transit Lifecycle Program. And then certainly other considerations, but we'll follow that. One thing we've committed to, and we'll certainly be doing it with the ITS committee as others, is just providing regular updates about where we're at. We'll figure out what's appropriate, but certainly be bringing in status checks and health checks to you guys so that you know where we're at and developing the plan as a whole, but also those things that are specific and of interest to your committee. And with that, that's actually the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be certainly happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions? Oh, does anyone have any questions for Patrick? Go ahead, Scott.
I have a couple questions. So why isn't it Proposition 500? We did 300, we did 400. I accept 500 for this one.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee, Mr. Notes. Yeah, for the longest time, we were calling it just 400E, extension of Prop 400. So once it went through the legislature last year and the county was directed to call the question, they just go in sequential order. 479 was next. So that's for no other reason, we were next in line. So that's the number we got.
Okay, thanks. If I want to submit a project on behalf of my member, on behalf of my agency, is there going to be a call for projects, or how do I go about submitting a proposal?
Yeah, so if you think about the investment plan, it's really bifurcated in two spaces. You have the life cycle programs that have identified projects. So we went out a few years ago, solicited member agencies based on direction from our policymakers to identify those larger investments in the three modal categories. We have those in the investment plan. And then there's all of that funding set aside in those competitive programs. That's what we're working on now. Scott, we'll be developing those policies and procedures to start figuring out when we do calls for projects. And we've done some research. We've done some peer agency reviews, but how often, how many years do we program at one time? What do we allow? What do we not allow? Matching requirements. There's so many things to discuss with our agency. So yeah, the first steps will be building those frameworks. And those will hopefully be followed by those calls for projects. And as I mentioned in the arterial space, we're going to develop those policies this spring, targeting a call for projects this fall, which will have that'll be the first bite of that apple.
And one last question.
Of course.
You mentioned under the new program, there's federal and sales tax and sales tax. Is the agency match different for each of those?
We are still working on matching requirements associated with each of the programs. So that's part of that policy conversation that will be discussed. No, great questions. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Oh, we have Micah Henry, City of Mesa.
Hey, good presentation. Thanks. Quick question is on the ALCP funding for 479. It looked like there was a change between Prop 400 and 479 of the funding sources. What's the impact on funding for ALCP and under Prop 479 based on that reduction in funding?
Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee, Mike, a great question. This is actually a question we got at Transportation Review Committee as well. So I think it's a phenomenal question. Because as I noted in the presentation, we move away from a blended funding to just regional only. That being said, the amount of regional funding allocated is doubled, more than doubled. So it's 22.5% versus 10.5 currently. The program actually grows under 479. So there's actually more funding available in 479 versus 400. So yeah, that was the exact same question was, hold on, if we have less sources, do we have less money? And that's just not the case here.
Are there any other questions for Patrick?
I've got one, Mr. Chair. So following up on Micah's question, so reducing the funding sources for the life cycle programs, will there be expected to be any efficiencies in those processes if you're taking out that federal funding?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mr. Garcia, another phenomenal question. That's exactly, I think, the reason. A lot of reflection on Prop 400 and having only federally funded programs. We've learned federal funds work best when they go on larger projects. It's just a reality of the space they exist in. So the thought is by using and leveraging regional funding into a lot of these programs, it provides greater opportunity, to your point, to hopefully deliver these investments quicker. Puts a lot of that into agency control. These projects will not be going through ADOT, which I think they're actually excited about as well. It kind of reduces their lift, and they certainly have enough on their plates right now. So I think there's just so many opportunities to really have this be a success. Now, a lot of that's also predicated on developing really good policies associated with it. But yeah, my expectation would be these projects come in hopefully cheaper and quicker. So yeah, that's part of the policy development will be if we move to 100% sales tax funded program, or a lot of the projects are sales tax funded, what are our expectations of those projects?
We also have a question from Susan Anderson. If you're done with that one, Micah, or I'm sorry, Albert.
I am done. Thank you so much.
All right. Go ahead, Susan.
All right. Hey, Patrick, thank you for a wonderful presentation. Very informative. I saw the need in there that was outlined for updating the SM&O plan. Is there a time frame that you anticipate that will be needed to be done by?
Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee, Susan, a great question. I don't have an answer for that at this point. The one thing you can see as you look at the investment plan, there's a lot in there. It's just no two ways about it. There are significant, we're going from 3 programs to 8. I would argue that even the 3 we have, ITS being one of them, we're not looking to just continuing existing programs. I think we're looking at a reset and an opportunity to really learn from the lessons of the past and build on that. So we can't do them all at once. I think that's why we said the first ones to develop and deliver would be the 2 arterial programs because of the federal funding component. I would think once those are put to bed and we have those moving, then the conversations will be had with our policymakers and we'll kind of be getting that guidance of where we go next of those remaining 6 categories. So yeah, stay tuned. Nothing to worry about currently, in the next few months, but something we'll be thinking about over the course of the rest of 2024.
Okay, thank you very much.
I had one quick, question myself. With that in mind, I'm assuming with this arterial program, we'll be able to include, some level of ITS components in it as well, just because it's this committee, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's actually a great question. And I think it's something that will be a common conversation throughout all of the programs, all of the projects is what are these projects? If we have an arterial widening, and an agency is thinking about, hey, I need to do some conduit work. I need to do, I have to relocate my signals. So while we're moving them, we need to do some things. I think that's going to be a conversation about, eligibility, what we include, what's appropriate for that. A lot of times if you're touching a roadway, you have ADA considerations, as Margaret, safety considerations. So I think it's really looking at that totality of those projects. Before widening was just widening. Hey, we're just adding a lane. So it's really, how do we consider the whole need at that location? But yeah, great question. So I think there will be opportunities to have those conversations about, what's eligible, what's not, how, again, to Scott's conversation, matching requirements and all of those things will still be developed and delivered.
So I would assume that everyone is mostly interested in this, but when they do a call for like committee members or anything else, please participate. So you can help create those policies, correct?
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee, I think that's a good point, and something we'll be very cognizant of is not just thinking about the committees themselves and the membership of those committees. We want to reach out to all agencies, hence why you see the concept of the working group. It really allows that participation of agencies, especially in the arterial space, as an example. Our current bevy of agencies that participate in the arterial life cycle program, it's fixed. We know who they are. We have a significant number of new agencies coming to the table. They may or not be part of the street committee. They may not participate in the ITS committee. So we want to make sure we reach out to those agencies and that they have that voice as we develop those policies. I don't want anyone when we're done going, oh, I wish we'd had a chance to. No, you will have a chance to have your voice heard and included in the conversation.
Are there any more questions for Patrick? Micah has one more. This is his
Not a-
limit. So
It's not a question, it's more of a comment regarding cost project estimates. I wish you the best of luck. So that's it.
A perfect way to end the presentation. Thank you, Micah.
All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 6. Item number 6 will be presented by MAG RCN Program Manager Brian Gish. This item is on the agenda for information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the ITS committee. Here to give a few updates about the RCN. It's been a while since we've had any talks about it, so I figured it'd be a good time to give a quick update about the RCN, just a little bit of a background. In general, it is a private high-speed fiber network given mostly up by you guys for donating fiber or offering up fiber for the network itself. We are currently at about, which is hard to see from the diagram, but we're at about 20 agencies connected right now and about 42 extra connections total beyond that. So we have like connections over to PD or fire or even to TMCs that, expand past an IT network or whatnot. So just want to point those out that we have a pretty big network. The next part too is that we have approved applications that support a lot of your transportation needs, public safety, emergency services, and also onto IT. Those are the approved applications that a lot of you guys have approved, along with the IT or the TAG committee here at MAG. Those are like the camera sharing, traffic signal coordination, disaster recovery backups, and all the other applications that ride across it that you guys approve. And of course, we're always looking for ways to expand either to other agencies or other departments. And we just kind of move along as we can to get those expansions going. Also, some general RCN updates over the next few months. We're going to be replacing some of the hardware that's out there. It's all end of life equipment, not all of it, but so we're going to be rolling those out. We started last month and we kind of slowly going out. So I'll be contacting you guys about getting some of those new switches in. The major improvements, we're talking from a 10 gig at distribution. We're going to be jumping up to 25. And then hopefully at the core, we can, if it supports it, the 100 gig. And that's just the main 3 switches. That's 8 at TOC, to Calvin Good, Phoenix, and also Phoenix Rental Car Center are 3 main cores. And those guys hopefully will be upgrading to 100 gig. Also, going out to you guys, probably already been reached out to most of you. We're looking at kind of doing a little bit of like a verification and inventory of the current Luxuriate management system. So each one of you guys has your own server running, and we're just kind of going through to check, making sure it's not peaking any of the performance, like with the network connections or the CPU, and looking for just ways to trim that down. So thanks for your help and support in that one. And then on to the other part, which is our regional fiber task force update. I want to remind you guys that this is a project started about 3.5 years ago. So we're at the tail end of the last 6 months of it. So I think it's been pretty successful, and hope we can continue forward with it. At our last meeting we had in November last year, we went over kind of just the purpose, went over the roles and responsibilities, and kind of a checklist just to reconfirm, reasons for any of the projects that come up. The biggest one is always making sure that we have conduit in place. We can't just, we can't do any earth movement or any disturbance. But other than that, at the meeting, we also discussed the extension of a City of Tempe project. That was the one that was completed back in September, and it was just a half a mile, 24 count. And that helped them out with the major backhaul link where they're having a lot of issues there along I-10. And we also had talked about a City of Apache Junction fiber extension project is actually going to be working on, I think next week they'll be starting that. So getting that one moving along, that'll be 3.5 to 4 miles of fiber. That'll upgrade an existing wireless connection that we have down there. And then that'll help them out significantly with traffic signal operations, pulling their cameras back, and then also a little bit of a IT backhaul. And of course, it's going to benefit us with the RCN with a connection there at Elliott Road and Ironwood with Mesa. Other than that, we added, and like to note that we added City of Buckeye to the RCN. It was compliments of ADOT and Buckeye loaning out a couple strands of fiber along Miller Road. And we got a link in there from ADOT and also over to Goodyear. So Goodyear was an existing one, but it's the backhaul link. And one of the new projects we're that we have coming up here is with the City of Chandler. So it'll be from along Chandler Boulevard, starting at 101 all the way east to Arizona Avenue. Anticipate about 3.5 miles of fiber. And we'll be doing 144 count like normal. It's an upgrade from their existing that I believe in some areas is at a 48 count. And we're just pulling in the main trunk line, and Chandler will be handling a lot of the branch or splice locations. The benefits of this would be Chandler, McDOT, RCN, and of course Valley Metro. And that brings us to summary. Just to remind everybody, RCN's a key asset, helping you guys with a lot of regional communications. We also have the task force that identifies any projects to help maintain or expand the RCN or any of you guys' regional connections. And we'll make sure we provide future updates to this committee, and also provide it to our TAG or Technology Advisory Group. And then also like to remind everybody of the RCN program itself. If you guys ever need it, we provide ITS technical support to you guys, whether it be networking, help with support of the local ITS devices, fiber, even wireless. So with that, I end it and open up if anybody has any questions.
We have a question from Micah.
Again, not a question, but a comment. I just want to say that we've received excellent support from MAG staff with regards to RCN, and with rising costs, we see a great value that MAG is providing the City of Mesa. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
This is Ruben with the but also
Hey, Ruben, it's kind of difficult to understand you. Oh, is it Marshall? Okay, Marshall.
Yeah, Ryan, can you provide an update? Your slide showed a wireless connection to Queen Creek, but I thought all that fiber had been worked out, so I'm wondering where that stands.
That's correct. That's just a typo on the diagram there. I need to upgrade that diagram. You can go back. It's just talking about the wireless connection shown. Yeah, so my apologies. To upgrade that to a versus wireless.
Thank you.
You bet, Marshall.
Are there any other questions?
This is David from McDodd. Again, not a question, more of a comment, but Ryan and Sage were very helpful recently, helping us set up a new physical Luxriot server. So just wanted to extend our thanks for their continuing support.
Thanks, David.
All right, thank you for that. And I as well. I mean, obviously, we do appreciate all of the work and efforts that are going into making improvements both within our jurisdiction and among each other that are making a difference for the region as well. So thank you for everyone's participation in that. And with that, we'll move on to item number 7. Item number 7 will be presented by MAG staff, Jeff Jenk and Paul Avery of AECom. This item is on the agenda for information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member of ITS committee, this is an update on the ongoing projects to develop a regional strategy for the connected vehicle in this region. Next slide, please. Okay. There are three parts to this presentation. We'll give you a project overview, as well as provide a recap of the significant milestone that has achieved to date, and then finally looking ahead of how we approach to develop the regional strategy. Thank you. I got it quick. This project was identified in the SMNO plan as a priority project, and one might have the question why it takes so long to start this study, and it's for a good reason. As you might recall, during the COVID, there was some major policy hiccups associated with the connected vehicle. Specifically, the FCC has a rulemaking trying to take away this dedicated wireless spectrum for the connected vehicle technologies. But now the dust has settled, and the industry also kind of reset. So we have decided that it was the right time to start this study. The purpose of this is to develop a regional connected vehicle strategy, apparently. But we were going to try to capitalize on the existing accomplishments in this region in the connected vehicle technology, specifically the leadership by MCDOT, ADOT, and other agencies that this region has been a pioneer in the connected vehicle technology. The focus of this study is going to be on the regional collaborations that hopefully through this study that we are going to provide more resources and some guidance as to how we move forward, how we promote the connected vehicle technology with all agencies and not just some of the regional agencies. So that is really the focus of this study. Next slide, please. I got it. So I want to have a shout out to our technical advisory group, which is important in providing the guidance to this study. That's made up of Susan from ADOT, David from MCDOT, Simon of Phoenix, Dr. Larry Head, who has been instrumental in the national connected vehicle technology movements, as well as Jeff Wisher, Dr. Jeff Wisher of the ACA and the Arizona Science Foundation, as well as the core team member from MEC. Well, this slide shows the major activities in a couple stages that the project started with a market review that provide an excellent document as to provide educational information on what is connected vehicle and from the technical as well as the policy perspectives. Then we went into the next stage of identifying the needs and the requirements. And we're currently in the readiness assessments. So I would like to turn over to the next section of the presentation to Paul Avery, who is the project consultant of AECOM, who is doing a great job on the studies. He's going to be providing the update or recap on the major milestone that has been achieved today. Paul?
Great. Thank you, Jeff, Mr. Chairman, and members of the ITS committee. Thank you so much for having this invitation to come present this project to you all. Do apologize in advance for any background noise. Next slide. So as Jeff mentioned, our first task on the project was really to do kind of a market scan, review what's been happening in the CV environment. As you all are well aware, it's gone through some pretty serious changes over the last few years. The graphic on this slide really does show, though, how CV has been an instrumental part for 20 plus years of the federal and state planning for connecting up vehicles with each other, as well as infrastructure. But there are challenges with testing and implementation because of the changes that we've experienced the last several years. CV data management was also another area that we highlighted in our market scan that still is a question for most deployers as they start to look at large scale deployments. System ownership as well. And then the maintenance challenges. Also, when you put up these devices, they don't just do their thing forever. They do require updates. They do require replacement. And then the companies that do that sort of largely disappeared for a while, and now we're starting to see them come back. The security aspects of CV, the SCMS, which is the Security Credential Management System, is critical. So again, in the market review, we really wanted to just look at where are these existing deployments, what state are they in, because many of these were DSRC, and now they have to change to CV2X, which requires another set of skills, another set of changes, and a lot of uncertainty. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there's really about 6 major OEMs that manufacture these devices now, and they're pretty much the same that were in the market before. So, they do other things, obviously. They can't survive alone on selling connected vehicle radios, but those 6 major OEMs have maintained their presence in the market and are now coming back online, essentially, to offer CV2X devices versus the DSRC. There were devices for quite a while that were dual mode, so to speak, but now we're seeing primarily CV2X, which I'll explain in a moment. The engineering services component, again, kind of like what an AECOM might do or another consultant, that is still strong. Those skills haven't gone away, but the system integrators is really kind of the soft spot that we found, where this is an integrator that would integrate the devices, integrate the data, understand the data, be able to troubleshoot, that kind of thing. There's only a few that we know of and that we found in our market review, but we do believe this is a growing market sector. So as these deployments increase, we believe we'll see more companies start to fill that gap. And then ongoing research. So because of the changes from the DSRC and the spectrum to the CV2X and the changes in that spectrum, there's still ongoing research on the data throughput, the latency, what applications can we reasonably run, how are those implemented, that kind of thing. So, for example, Turner Fairbank for federal efforts, obviously Arizona has a lot of this ongoing research, so it's still an active area of research. Next slide. Speaking of the FCC, as I mentioned, they did several years ago implement some rulemaking that essentially reallocated much of the spectrum that had been allocated for 20 plus years. And they gave it essentially to the Wi-Fi operators. What that means is that the spectrum that connected vehicle ecosystem had been working with was now a lot smaller. And what that means is your messages then can't get through at the same rate or the same size as we were expecting beforehand. So in order to operate what's called CV2X, which is similar technology, I'll get to that in a moment as well, the FCC actually required a waiver for their own rules. So it's a little bit strange of a game, but essentially this graphic here, we looked at who had applied for the initial wave of waivers and then the second batch of waivers. You can see there was a huge jump between the first and second. So the second was much more recent. Obviously, we do expect final rulemaking from FCC here soon, but as you all know, that may take some time. So the waivers are still in place. Next slide. So the next piece of our project was an agency workshop. Next slide. This was a great opportunity. We all came down in person, several of us from AECOM who aren't already based in Phoenix. And we met with many of the representatives from MAG. We did have FHWA online with us. It was a 3-hour interactive workshop. We had many attendees from the agencies in MAG. We discussed technology, policy, the national perspective, as I mentioned, from FHWA, as well as local opportunities. So it was really a great opportunity for all of us to sort of level set and say, hey, we all kind of know what's going on with CVs. Some of us know more than others because some have been entrenched in this for a lot longer. And we got to all hash out those items for the region, right? And also pulling in that national perspective from FHWA. Next slide. So our takeaways, just if I sum up in a few bullets, really the agency needs, it's kind of the same as we might expect. Traffic management. We identified a number of applicable scenarios that are of interest for the agencies to apply connected vehicles to. Challenges, again, staffing, the knowledge, infrastructure. The staffing and the knowledge just comes down to, again, this technology is not widely deployed. It's not why I mean, it has been, but it's been DSRC. So now we're changing things up. Things are still developing with the technology and then the infrastructure. So actually deploying the devices and getting the data connected back to a central system. These all have consequences, right? Next slide. Next slide. So peer agency interviews. This was our chance to, next slide, please. Thank you. So what we also did is we looked at agencies around the US that were structurally similar to MAG or had a very large deployment of CV devices prior to the FCC. So one of the groups was the North Central Texas Council of Governments. I'm based in Austin. This group is more up towards Dallas, but they are a large council of governments similar to MAG. Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, again, another group, regional kind of group. Metro Plan Orlando, they're similar as well. And then Georgia DOT obviously is not a kind of a planning organization, but Georgia DOT, as many of you know, has a very large deployment of CV devices, largely DSRC, but they are switching over to CV2X. So we interviewed each of these 4 groups with the intent to understand how are they managing the CV changes. Some of them are sort of wait and see. Some of them are full speed ahead. And then some of them are more hands-off than what we see with MAG, meaning that these regional groups sort of let the constituent agencies decide. They maybe play a role in facilitating things, but certainly less of a approach, I would say, than what we see with MAG. Next slide. So those are the topics we covered in our interviews: is the regional multi-agency coordination, the deployment location, how they selected what use cases to employ, how do they manage technologies, and then their lessons learned. I would say that some of the challenges that they mentioned were in the area of coordination. If they had a hands-off approach coordinating, then you could get cities not talking to each other, et cetera, or counties, and then the CV data is not shared, it's siloed, these kinds of challenges. So next slide. So our takeaways from those interviews really is that, individual agencies were determining essentially deployment details because they have that local knowledge. The technology installation integration has many different challenges that aren't obvious. Everything from the mechanics of deployment to the data side, to the security side, to maintenance. So there are many, and even the procurement side can actually provide some challenges. And then to consider technology deployments beyond the pilots, right? I think we're all getting to that point where pilots are no longer really part of the discussion. Let's do some actual deployments. Next slide. All right, MAG agency survey was the next piece of our project. Next slide. Now this was really, we sent out an online survey that we drafted to the MAG agencies. It was a question and answer format, multiple choice usually. or a ranking of the choices, and then sometimes free-form text. The purpose was to assess essentially the readiness for that agency to deploy. Where did they stand? Like, you know, in all of the requirements for deployment, where do they land? Because we all know everybody's going to land somewhere on the spectrum. And then what are those challenges? Next slide. Through analysis of the responses, again, it is a small sample size for sure, so it's hard to make statistical analysis of it. But with the small sample size, we obviously saw that the region does have early adopters. We know that. We have leaders in the group. Transit and emergency vehicle applications are the most applicable, partly because we can control what goes on the vehicles in that case. We can't force connected vehicles to just appear, but in these fleet vehicles, we have a little bit more control. And then there's a good mix of readiness across the region, which is we expected, but it's good to see that and to see how one area can benefit from the knowledge and readiness of an adjacent area, for example. Next slide. Next slide. And then the focused interviews, what we did after the survey is we followed up with several of the stakeholders for a one-on-one interview based on their responses, just to get some clarity on how they responded to certain questions. So we wanted to, as far as these stakeholders, we selected a regional and local agencies, developed versus developing as far as skill sets, capabilities, large and small. So we tried to get a mix of those. The candidates we selected, probably no surprise to you all, Maricopa Department of Transportation, Arizona Department of Transportation, the cities of Phoenix and Surprise. Next slide. And so our focus was really to get a presentation across the region of the agencies. And then, like, as I mentioned, expand and clarify upon survey responses. There's only so much you can glean from a yes, no, or one thing. So these interviews really helped clarify some of that. And then a focused discussion on understanding and readiness. So it was very helpful, all of those meetings. And they are contributing now to the next step, which is that strategy development that Jeff mentioned. Next slide. I think that might be the end of it. Okay, takeaways. Yeah, the region, again, has strong CV leadership, local and national. So MAG is nationally recognized. Smaller agencies benefit from that regional coordination. So that's very helpful. And then the CV technologies and applications, you know, really have to be integrated regionally for them to be effective. A single corridor that's not plugged into other stuff, you know, is moderately effective, but more of this regional approach is really going to be the big benefit here. Next slide. Yeah, so as I mentioned, the next steps really are developing this regional strategy. We do have another agency workshop we're getting scheduled, and then our final strategy roadmap, and of course, briefing at the MAG ITS committee. Next slide. And that is the end of my portion. Jeff, do you have any additional comments?
Well, you actually stole my last slide, but thank you. You did a great job. So this concluded this interim update on this regional connected vehicle strategy study. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments that you might have.
I have a
Kelly?
quick question. I apologize if I missed this. Tech memos 1 and 2, are they available already to be looked at, or are those going to be available after the project's complete?
It's already distributed, but let me follow up.
Yeah, they're on the website somewhere.
Sure.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions for Jeff and Paul? I have one comment, and that was just to apologize for not making it to that first workshop, either myself or Gary. We did try to go. There was a conflict. We do plan to be to the next one. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 8 then. Reports by committee members. Item number 8 is for information only. I would like to invite any member of the MAG ITS committee to report on ongoing ITS related project activities in their jurisdiction. We'll begin with those here in person, and then MAG staff will use the roll call sheet to request member reports from those attending virtually. I guess we'll go ahead and start up here on the right with Ellie, City
Sounds
of
good.
Tempe.
Thanks. We have a new signal that's turning on tomorrow, I believe, at Beck and Rio. So that puts us at 250 exactly. We are on schedule to finish the design for our TMC upgrade project by the end of the month. So we're excited to see what comes out of that. And we are working with MAG to kick off the a light deployment, which is a GPS-based EVP in the kind of western part of the city. So we'll keep you guys updated on how that goes.
Right. Two things. So given that the MAG ITS meetings will be moving to every other month, the information that I typically cover in the PowerPoints and about projects and grant information, I also send out via email. So if you're not already on my email list and you'd like to be added to that email list to get that direct line of communication, please let me know. Second thing is that in the next coming weeks, I will be sending out information about an operations boot camp, which I believe is in Maryland. I'm just trying to find out if there are federal funds allowed to be given to give people scholarships basically to go, and then I'll send out information about that. That's it.
Thank you, Karan. Scott?
The draft MAG-sponsored TSOP report was prepared for Porter Road, and our staff is reviewing it at this time.
Thank you, Scott. Anything from City of Phoenix, Simon?
Yeah, I got a few items here. So we're currently experiencing a quote unquote data storm within our communications network. So folks are wondering why they're not seeing our video through LexRead. We're hoping to get this issue resolved hopefully by the end of this week. Onto our RSU Ahwatukee project. So far we've got about 20 RSUs landed out in the field. We're waiting to move to the next phase on as far as wiring them up and getting them configured. TMC is moving forward with the kits installation of the ATMS. So I believe the last time or last meeting I shared that we did choose the kit system through a U of A study. So moving forward with that with the assistance of Northern Arizona University. We do have a new deputy director for traffic services that started this past Monday, Jorge Riveros. So he's actually really well known here in the Phoenix region and in the Pima County region as well. This one's a tough one, but Bruce Littleton has announced his retirement from City of Phoenix. I believe his date is March 27th. We will be celebrating his retirement offsite. So if anybody would like to participate in the celebration, feel free to catch up with me offline and I'll provide you the details. That said, from a result from our yellow change interval study at City of Phoenix, our city council had approved 7 positions for the traffic management center for the retiming program. So we were going to be having announcements for a TE2, a TE1, an SSS2, Signal System Specialist 2. Sorry, an acronym for TE is Traffic Engineer 2, Traffic Engineer 1, and Signal System Specialist 2, and a Signal System Specialist 1. So that's all I have to report. Thank you.
You got a lot going on there, and I'm sure we'll all, miss Bruce being around. So, as I guess I'll do myself real quick. But with the town of Gilbert, we have a lot of ongoing projects. One with our fiber optic strategic build out to try to finalize basically all the main corridor runs, throughout Gilbert. And that's along with some of the CIP projects and some of the development projects that are going on. We did recently turn on a signal as well. I think we're at 226 now. And more on the way, I'm sure, like all of you. We are in the middle of a TOC information gathering project. So thank you to everyone who allowed, a group of us to come visit your locations. I wasn't at all of them, but I was at some of them. But it really did help us to kind of look and see what we saw as the positives or negatives. And we also have done a lot of virtual interviews regionally. And we visited a few of those sites, just came back from Florida last night, actually, looking at Halliburton County there. And it was very interesting. And I didn't expect to get as much, out of the site visit because we'd already done a virtual interview as we did, but it was beneficial. And that's about it in the essence of time, but there's a lot of other things going on. With that, Albert Garcia.
I actually have no updates this month.
Thank you, Albert.
I'll
Steve
make up
McKenzie.
for it. I have plenty. For those of you who haven't heard, Chris Lemke, this was his last week at the city of Peoria as the city traffic engineer. Brandon Forey has been given the opportunity and accepted it. I believe officially about a week from now, he'll start in that capacity. Brandon's position, the assistant city traffic engineer position, is posted currently for 2 weeks. So if anybody's interested in that, it's out on the website. We are pretty much at about 99% done on our traffic management center upgrade project that was all locally funded. We have a brand new video wall, brand new video processor, and several other upgrades. It looks great. And anybody wants to come by and see it, we can show that off. Also, we finished our North Peoria comms backup project, which thank you to ADOT and McDOT for providing fiber. We have a redundant path now that goes outside of the city that comes back to the TMC. So the north part of our city, if we lose connection, we have a backhaul route. And in that process, we also discovered that we're probably going to need to replace some 20-year-old plus trunk line along our regular route. So we've got some feasibility studies coming up to see what we can do about upgrading that. And we have about 50 new switches that will complete the replacement of all of our field switches so that we're all capable of 10 gig, but we will be doing 1 gig backhauls to the 10 gig nodes. And then we have 10 gig nodes coming back to the TMC now from all of our node locations. I'm sure there's other things, but those are the main ones.
Thank you, Steve. City of Mesa, Micah Henry.
I just have a couple notes. We'll be focusing on ATC cabinets moving forward over the next 3 to 4 weeks. We have testing and training over at our West shop that we'll be looking at that. We are also upgrading our field equipment for our adaptive control intersections and finally replacing a bunch of ancient cameras to get those.
I believe your position was also filled, Micah, your old
Yes,
position.
thank you. Marty Lauber from ADOT has now joined City Mesa as the senior transportation engineer. So for the first time that anyone can recall, we are fully staffed. So it hasn't happened in ages, several administrations anyways. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, with that, another Marty, Valley Metro.
Nothing this month from Valley Metro.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move to those online, and Chris will go ahead and take care of that.
Susan Anderson, ADOT.
Hey, good morning, everyone. One item just to let you know, we have noticed on the Loop 101 construction project between Shea and Princess, we're actually, the RE has expressed interest in using the adaptive ramp metering out there during the construction time. So that'd be during the midday. We are working with the RE to see if that'll be a good idea. So you may hear more about, expansion of the adaptive metering during the daytime rather than just during the peak hours. We think there might be benefit there. To add along with the staffing updates, ADOT's recently had some updates within the TISMO division. David Blue has joined as our new traffic manager. So he took over for Derek Arnson. And also David Loker has joined as the operational traffic and safety group manager. So 2 new group managers in the TISMO division. With that, thank you very much.
Hugh Bjork, City of Goodyear.
Yeah, thank you. We've begun work on, it was a group of 3 federally funded projects that upgrades our detection, our switches, controllers, and travel time hardware. Actually installs new travel time hardware at, I believe it's 16 intersections. There were segments of Indian School Road, Van Buren Street, and the other one was Yuma Road. We just begun the installation process on that, which it was the federal projects purchase the equipment, or they were procurement only, and the city installs that equipment. So we're just getting started on those installations now. And also joining in on Peoria, we just upgraded all of our field switches, completed that a couple of weeks ago. We're now, all of our city is now 10 gig between the field and the TMC. So that's a big accomplishment for us. Thank you.
Lisa Dahl, City of Chandler.
I have nothing new to report.
Frank Anani, City of Buckeye.
Yeah, no updates from City of Buckeye. Thank you.
Ruben Lopez, City of Glendale.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
We cannot hear you, Ruben.
I think Ruben said that there was nothing to report, but I'm not sure. I only got part of it. If there is, Ruben, feel free to come off of mute and let us know.
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
City of Glendale just recently filled the position of traffic signal supervisor, a gentleman by the name of Diego Padilla. And other than that, we're just prepping for the Final Four at this time.
Thank you, Ruben. David Lucas, Maricopa County Department of Transportation.
Thank you. Just 2 quick updates. One is a staffing change update I wanted to share. Dwayne Fontaine, our ITS network administrator, is relocating out of state to be closer to some family in Arkansas. So Tristan DeSoto, our current network engineer, is going to be stepping into that role until we advertise and get a permanent person in that role. We also have an RFP that's going to be hitting the street later this month. This is a rebid of one that came out during the holidays. So no surprise we didn't get a great response since it was right between Christmas and New Year's. So we're going to get a better response this time. So keep an eye out for that during the end of this month. And that's for our MAG-TIP funded project for intelligent transit and freight signal priority. That's all I have.
Thank you. Marshall Regal, Town of Queen Creek.
Yeah, our 2 fiber ring projects are finishing up design, and they should be ready for advertising probably in the fall, early fall. And we're by the end of next year, we should be at 100 signals. And with between our local funds and the TIP project, we should have all our signals fully SPAT capable.
Raquel Schatz, City of Apache Junction.
Nothing.
Ward Stanford, City of Avondale.
Couple of quick items. Our Dysart Arid project is getting close to concluding the installation of all the components and the configuration of the Arid devices. Our EVP component replacement project has done all but one location, and so it'll be wrapping up shortly. And we are still working through the IGA process on our cellular comm and CCTV project. Outside of that, that's it. Thank you.
Tessa Wessel, City of El Mirage.
Nothing to report from El Mirage.
Have I missed anyone online?
Yes, John Huang, City of Scottsdale. I just have a few updates. Piggyback to Susan's, the 101 widening project. Yes, it's under construction, full swing, and we noticed that the traffic diverting onto the arterials impacting us, but we are able to manage the timing to get people through. We also have an LED upgrade of about 1,000 luminaires in different arterials in the city. We're working on two detection / controller and cabinet upgrades, 2 projects. Phase 1, we're going to be replacing about 80 detection systems along with a controller, a few controllers, and cabinets for phase 1. And phase 2, we have about 50 detection system replacement upgrades, so a few controller and cabinet upgrades. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe that completes reports by committee members online, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for anyone?
I don't have a question, Mike, but I did forget one other thing. We've completed our kits rollover. So we're fully functional on kits for all of our signals. And we are using the congestion manager feature for spring training as we speak.
All right, well, that's exciting. You'll have to let us know how that goes. And you beat Simon finishing kits. Was that the point of that? That's okay. Just kidding, Simon, I'm sure. Yeah. All right. So with that, we'll move on to item number 9. Do any member of the MAG ITS committee have topics or issues of interest that you would like to have considered for discussion at future meetings? We could have a little presentation from you on how it goes with spring training. There's a suggestion.
Mr. Chair, this is David from McDodd. I have one.
Okay.
I would like to ask, I know several years ago, there was a presentation that was made by Department of Homeland Security and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, where they provided us some updates on what's going on in the cybersecurity space. It seems like it's been long enough. It might be time again for an update from them, as well as talking about the alerts and things like that that they provide and offer. So there's been a lot of changes, new members at various agencies, so it seems like a timely agenda item. Thank you.
I actually like that as well, David. And if there ever was an opportunity down the road, maybe even from, after that presentation or something else, but maybe to do an audit of each one of our systems, if that was possible, just to kind of see if there's anything we can or can't do to make improvements regionally. And maybe it's with the RCN, maybe it starts there, but I do like the idea of that. Is there anything else anyone would like to suggest? All right. With that, we'll move on to item number 10. The next meeting of the MAG ITS committee will be held at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. Attendance is in person and as encouraged. It's on the MAG second floor in the Ironwood room. And it is always good to see your faces. If you can make it down here, it'd be great. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just chime in just so there's no confusion. So as I mentioned earlier, if we do not receive any comments or questions from members by the end of this week, we will move forward actually with a May committee meeting. And that would be May
1st.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that clarification. I was wondering myself because I remember it was in May. And all right. but that is a good reminder just to reach out if, and get with, Mag, if you do have a question or a concern on every other month. And thank you again, everyone. And with that, we'll proceed to the adjournment of this meeting. Thank you so much for everyone coming. We'll see you next time.
Have a good day, all.